It's the Ides of March, and Russia maybe is all in on its offensive. At least ISW is reporting that Russia has committed its tactical and operational reserves. And yes, now, if you're going to say, make comments about ISW, okay, I get a lot of, oh, ISW is always wrong. Give me an example. If you're gonna comment on ISW, please give me an example of where you think they did wrong, and I can look at that. But for now, I'm looking at ISW. They spend a lot of time looking at this, and their assessment is that Russia is doing this, right? And so we have a lot of Russian offensives that are going on. In Robotny, they've taken back some of the positions they lost during the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Avdiivka, obviously, they've gained there recently, and they are really hammering the Ukrainian line that Ukraine has tried to form to the north and west of that city. In Bakhmut, they're trying to come out of Bakhmut. They're advancing through Ivanivska towards Chasiv Yar, up towards Liman. They're moving in that direction and attacking there. And they're on again, off again at Kupiansk. They weren't doing much by some indications yesterday, but they're always pushing on Kupiansk in the north. And so if they've committed these reserves, that tells us a couple things. One, it certainly indicates that they aren't responding heavily to the Freedom of Russia Legion attacks towards Kursk and in Belgorod. That they're not worrying too much about that. They're keeping their eye on the ball. And it probably is, it may be because they sense Ukrainian weakness. There's there's an ammunition shortage, and, there's ISW has previously reported that, they assess that the Ukrainian front line is weaker than it looks, right? And so the Russians are testing that putting that proposition to the test, and they're going to be, really pressing on these guys. So we may have something of a crisis or a moment of testing here for the Ukrainians. Can they hold as the Russians do this? On the plus side for Ukraine, if the Russians are doing this now, it means if they do have success, they won't be able to exploit it, right? So we may see the Ukrainians pull back, but this operation, if you're committing your reserves, that's it, right? You're moving towards what's called culmination, where you're not able to sustain the pressure. And so this is something that is as likely to happen, right? So we want to be watching this. It's probably, there's something in the calculus about the Russian elections coming up, the desire to keep the pressure up, to go into the elections with this narrative that they're on the advance and they're moving. And so committing the reserves to keep it going makes sense, not because they expect to push through and break through and have some great success on the battlefield, but that they're trying to put some successes up in the win column. And they may be calculating that the demands for action after the election will diminish, right? And that there will be less, and Russian generals, you got to wonder, are they looking at the battlefield for their inspiration or their next move, or are they looking over their shoulder like, what are you going to want me to do next? And I've got to be ready to do it. That is what it is to work for a dictator. And it's one of the reasons that these guys often don't, their armies don't do well. So this is what's going on. I think we're going to be watching this to see over the next few days what happens in these various locations. Are the Russians expending their reserves? Are they going to be able to do it? Ukraine is probably right now in a period where they are under unusual stress. However, their commander just said that he's going to start rotating troops out, right? So that, that announcement, and if that planning goes on, that would suggest that they're not really sweating as much. So these are the reports. We'll have to see which direction things go, as always.